great question. It's a question I get the most often. I think the easiest or the shortest answer to that is I, like many people, want to feel a part of a system that takes my opinion in account, and is also one that I feel is getting better. And so I think the only way that we can do that is if we fully participate. I've been blessed that I work in a profession as a physician for the last 17 years, in which I get to ask people their opinions and I get to provide care. But I feel as if there are a lot of things that we could do better. And so when I look at the framework of my position as a physician or the healthcare system, I feel that the way that we can do that system better is if you have more people like me in office that are actually able to help inform what my patients need, what the profession needs. And I think that that rubric applies to so many other things. So, I use the analogy of medicine because I'm a doctor, but I think that applies to, whether we want people that understand science and technology, whether we want people that have a track record of public service, like me when I was deploying to Iraq, or whether we have people that I think can inform the policies that we are making from multiple different angles of what makes us great, as a country, which I think is our shared values, our sense of community, our Constitution, and the very diversity that I think you don't see in a lot of other places. So that's why I'm running for Congress, because I want to be part of the solution. I don't want to be, one of the ones that's kind of standing on the sidelines, kind of arguing for something to be better. I want to be part of making us better. It's an impossible skill, unfortunately, but it'd be one in which I could instantly translate into another person's language. And I say that because when I was in the military, I took a couple of years of Arabic. And then once I met my wife, I switched that over to Hindi and Urdu and some of the languages associated with India. And prior to that, I took Spanish in high school because when I worked on the farm, there were a lot of, immigrant farm workers that we worked with. And every single time, and honest to God, I was having a phone call with a donor earlier today who was ethnically from Pakistan, and I spoke to him in Urdu. And what I found is that when you can speak someone's language, even if it's not specifically their language, but if you can relate to them in that way, whether it's understanding cultural references, whether it's understanding, where they come from, you instantly form a bond. And once you form that bond, you form a relationship. And once you have that relationship, you have an opportunity to not just kind of influence them, but to understand what makes them tick and understand how you can work together to get things done. So that's a skill I've always had. That's why I still study, my wife's language, and I still, try to study the Arabic and other things, because I've noticed how people open up when they see that you're trying to learn their language and you actually can speak it. So that would be the skill I would pick up. Yeah, I think one of the first moments, and I know military isn't the same as a public servant, but I feel like it is someone who decides that they're going to serve in the public interest, as someone that's raise their right hand to swear the oath to defend the Constitution. And that was right after September 11th. So I remembered prior to that, I was in high school and was interacting with a judge because my brother was trying to do a clerkship. He's 6 years older than I am. And he had suggested, maybe going to West Point or going to some of the military academies. And I'd already had my eyes set on Georgia Tech and Clark, so I ended up going down there. But after September 11th, I kind of felt like this was a situation where there are a lot of people, and this was me not too long after I was in my first year of law school and med school. There were a lot of people that were being asked to give beyond the normal in our country. And there were just recently a bunch of people that public servants, people like firemen and police officers and stuff like that ran into the Twin Towers and, were never heard from again. And so I felt like this was a situation in which I could try to serve something bigger than myself, and try to help understand a little bit more of what happened, and try to give back. And so, that I think started me down this road of taking on things that weren't necessarily private sector based, but more public sector or at least government based. And so went to the recruiter, joined the Navy, served for 5 years active duty, and then my few years of reserve time. And then after that, finished my residency and the White House fellowship and everything else, specifically to public service as an elected official. I would say it really, I think, cemented in my mind when I was part of the healthcare team of the Biden campaign. And this was, I think maybe October timeframe of 2020, right a couple of months before the election. I had worked on the Mayor Pete Buttigieg campaign prior to that as a healthcare advisor. And then I got on the Biden campaign and I was excited because I said, hey, it seems like, Biden's gonna win this and I wanna do whatever I can to help. But what I realized was I was on a team. And so with Mayor Buttigieg, the team had about 20 people, the healthcare team. So you felt like you really had a say in what was going on. The Biden team had 900. And so it was at that time in which I realized, I said, I feel like I have all this training, all this experience, but not an opportunity to really translate that into what I think could be good policy for my patients, for myself, for my family. And it's not going to be enough to just sit here and try to fundraise for people or try to, bump elbows to try to get on these teams. I said, if these are ideas I think could help people, I think I should put them to the voter. I said, I should go out there and try to run for something I believe in and try to make it policy. And so it was around that September of 2020 period that I actually made the decision, started reaching out to friends of mine, and I guess, as they say, the rest is history. Ozark. Yeah, my wife had heard about it from one of her groups or something. And we were, like you said, trying to struggle and find some time. And right now, a lot of our personal time together is spent on the couch charting because both of us are in medicine. So we were like, well, what's a TV show we can watch while charting? And, this Ozark chart kind of TV show came up. And it's actually so interesting that we don't even chart while we're watching it. We actually just watch the show, So, it's actually a very interesting kind of storyline. I don't know if you've heard about it, but this money launderer finance guy and his group, in the very beginning, all of them are assassinated by the drug lord that they're laundering money for, except him. And he randomly has this pamphlet on him about the Ozarks, and he convinces them not to kill him, saying, oh, there's this better place I can launder money for you. And I think we're maybe 5 or 6 episodes in, and it's basically about his struggle, with his family and trying to figure out how to, I guess, rekindle the love he had with his wife, but then also trying to figure out how to stay alive in this completely different place. So I don't know, it's just interesting. And Jason Bateman's such a good actor. So that's that. I'll measure success based upon, I think, what tangible pieces of legislation I can either sponsor myself or co-sponsor that have direct benefits in my district. And I know as a freshman congressman, there's not a ton of power and control that you have, but I feel that, and I'm obviously hoping that the Democrats are in control, but I'm pretty confident that if we are able to maintain control, it's going to be by a very slim margin. And so I think as a Democrat of the party that's in power, I think I'll have opportunities to talk to the executive branch that, the party out of power wouldn't, in terms of getting invites to the White House and talking to the team. But the thing I will specifically tell them is, look, yes, demographically, my district does not look like one that Democrats can win, but you know what? We just won it. Ethnically, it's only 1% African-American, even though we know that some of the 2020 census data is not really that accurate. So even if you triple that, it's still only 3% African-American. But it's very few Asians, very few people of other ethnicities. I think about 4% Asian, but it's very rural also. And I think that is a geographic demographic that, quite frankly, a lot of Democrats have given up on. And I don't think we should cede that ground. And so when I talk to them about things like a federal fire insurance program, or I talk to them about putting more money into the U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, and why. If we can get those wins, I think that would help secure for districts like mine the belief that the Democrats are a broader party than some of these people in these rural areas believe. And it's broad enough, we have a big enough tent to actually encompass some people that I think have thought that their best lot is with the Republicans, even though when you look at a lot of their policies, it absolutely isn't. Hiking. Oh, I love hiking. My wife and I, when we literally first met, I was like I said, a doctor at that inner city clinic, and she was a nurse practitioner student. I was talking to someone about just getting back from a hiking trip to Peru. Lucky for me, she was just going to Peru. So then she heard that and was like, oh, wow, I wanted to ask you some questions. We've been hiking ever since. When I left or finished residency, our big trip that we wanted to take, which is probably going to be our biggest hiking trip, was to hike Kilimanjaro. And so we went to Tanzania. We did that, spent about 2 weeks, 2 weeks there. And even now, we've gotten our kids into it. I think at the end of this quarter, because of course we're fundraising and trying to get our goal and our numbers in, we're going to go hiking in the Bay, and that's going to be really nice. So it's something, just being outdoors and taking advantage of where we are in California, but just, having our children share that love that we have of just the outdoors and being up in high air and just feeling it and feeling a part of the world. It's hard to pinpoint it down to one, so I'm going to cheat and give you two. I think the most humbling moment, I guess I'll rephrase that part, was within a week of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We sent out an email, and I think this touched everyone, but especially being someone that deployed and was in the military. We sent out an email asking for people to donate to Ukraine. And that was the highest fundraising email that we've ever sent out. I mean, some people donated to us, which we obviously appreciated, but a lot of people donated to campaign to Ukraine, and it raised almost, I think, $20,000. And so that was just, for me, it was a humbling experience, and it just made me feel proud. It made me feel like we were doing something good with the campaign. I'd say one of the coolest experiences was I was doing an event earlier last week in kind of a rural area of my district in Lincoln. And we haven't even done advertising yet. And I was stopped at a Safeway food store. And I was like, okay, I have like 15 minutes before I have to be at this event. I'm just going to try to get something at the deli. And some young guy behind the deli counter, he looks at me and he says, "You're Dr. Kermit. You're the guy that's running for Congress in this district. Oh my God, this is so exciting. That you're here in front of me." And I was just shocked. I was shocked that this guy even knew who I was. And then he comes up to me and he said, "I got to take a picture for my parents. They love you, And for me, it's like, how this thing is. I mean, you work campaigns, you get tired of the event. Sometimes you're exhausted. You definitely get tired of calling people on the phone for money. But to have someone just come up to you with just pure excitement that you would have never expected to have known you from Adam, was probably one of the coolest things that's happened to me. And it definitely gave me some energy that day.